for helping us put this special event together. My name is Edward Joseph. I'm with the SAIS Foreign Policy Institute, and it's really a pleasure, a special pleasure for me to welcome our very own SAIS alumnus, Minister Stefan Andonovski from North Macedonia. And Stefan Andonovski has the fascinating portfolio of Minister of Digital Transformation. He is a recent SAIS alumnus, not that long ago, 2015, studied conflict management. Here, I took him around. He already was saying hello to familiar faces. And he, prior to that, just for your information, at university, their main university, Kirill and Metodia in Skopje, he studied law. And he just told us, which he'll share with you, that the interesting story of how he emerged from SAIS and then into his present position. And then finally, I would just say this about his country. He had the honor of hosting Prime Minister Mickoski here recently. We had a great event here at SAIS. And he leads the new government that did extremely well in election back in April. And that country is already a leader in the region in the digital space. I would say that North Macedonia has made a lot of advances in the region. And digital figures very prominently in this country, especially prominently. Why? Because the Macedonian path to the EU has been unfairly blocked. Okay, that's a separate political issue I'm not going to open up, but we can, those of you who know and follow the region know that the Macedonians did everything necessary to be able to open their negotiations with the EU, but they are being unfairly blocked by their neighbor, Bulgaria. So that, with that as background, that means that the digital space, what they can do in the digital area is even more important there. And Stefan, please, you have the floor. Welcome back to SAIS.
Hi, everyone. You will allow me to sit while I'm speaking. I feel more in contact with you guys. I hope it's not a problem. It's a privilege to be here, a true privilege to come back at SAIS, even though in a more beautiful building than the one I left in 2015. Maybe the biggest mistake I did while at SAIS, so I focused on it as a school, not only as a platform for connections with people, for doing internships. I was mainly connected on my subjects, on doing the capstone research as right as possible and do it as fast as possible. So I was a bit of a rush, my 2 years here. The first year I did in Bologna, so that experience has taught me a lot. I hope part of you are coming from that school as well. It was a fantastic opportunity for me, and it's a true privilege to be able to speak to you today. I will start with a bit of digital and then go into a bit of politics. So we covered the two aspects that might be interesting for you guys. I'm coming from a country that is very well connected in the internet sphere. Some 10 years ago, we had the best coverage in whole of Central and Eastern Europe in terms of broadband internet. And our citizens and businesses understand internet and they use it. And for me at the time, traveling around Europe, it was interesting to see how more advanced countries like, I don't know, Italy or Germany would have problems and glitches with 3G at the time and connections at the time. While in Macedonia, you could have, fast internet connection, no problem. Almost everyone having internet in their homes, using it, and that was fantastic to see. From time to time, you would see that the government would do something. We had, for example, the interoperability platform introduced in 2013. What Estonia did 10 years back, 2000 or 2002. But we were on the right track, we were doing things. Unfortunately, the past 10 years, because facing firstly domestic political crisis, then a huge corona crisis that hit us very badly in the health sector, then energy crisis and inflation, no one really talked about digitalization. And while the banks, the society, people, especially youngsters, moved in the direction of digitalization and IT, the government unfortunately lagged behind. And we have only 120 services accessible online. And out of 1.5 million people that are currently living in the country, only 100,000 use the portal for e-services, so almost no one. And that was a situation where we came in as a government. On the side of cybersecurity, unfortunately, we don't have a cybersecurity law, so there is nothing as a legal basis to cover the spectrum of cybersecurity. And as the countries in the region, you probably know, we've had our fair share of attacks. I have some numbers here. The cyber attacks for the Balkans in general have risen 40% only in the previous year. So it's something that is going on. As a country which has aligned itself to NATO, we are open and vulnerable to attacks from other malign actors. And we have seen such events. Previous year, so 2023, we had an attack on the Energy Network Agency, an attack on the Health Fund. We had numerous bomb threats in the schools. They were coming from email accounts, non-associated or associated with some of the actors towards our east, towards Russia. So you would see that these things are happening, but there was no answer on the side of the government, unfortunately. But we decided as a ministry, first, the Prime Minister decided to have a specific ministry targeting digital transformation. We had an IT and public administration ministry combined in one. The strategic decision was made by the Prime Minister to separate the two and to put a very big focus on digital transformation. Please have in mind that this ministry has had 6 ministers in the past 5 years. So there was no, path in which one person could, even if they wanted to, even if they had the potential, the knowledge to bring real results. And they were usually coming from smaller political parties, and politics is very important focus. For the first time in many years, the minister comes from the biggest party in the parliament and the biggest party in the government. And I'm privileged to say that I have very close connection with the Prime Minister, and that's why I'm part of his cabinet. Because I'm not an engineer myself, I wasn't expected to come into a position of digital transformation, but his view was that I could be the one coordinating the efforts in the digital sphere. Because unfortunately, until now, we have had parallel ad hoc efforts in terms of digitalization. So a ministry would do one thing, then a deputy prime minister for good governance would do another thing, then another agency would do something third, and everybody would go around in different directions. The topics I'm more focused on in these 60 days, so only 60 days of my mandate, I'm the very beginning, is we started drafting a cybersecurity strategy that will align us to the European Union efforts in terms of cyber security, and at the same time we're drafting a law on cybersecurity. I expect it to pass in Parliament by the end of this autumn, so by November, December, I hope to have it in Parliament. The good thing now, the easier part is that when you have a viable, feasible law, then it can pass in Parliament fast, because it is we have a huge majority in the Parliament, and I hope it stays. And I'm saying this as a SAIS alumni. I hope it stays in the positive. So we pass laws fast in Parliament for the positive side, not for the negatives, because sometimes politics can become a bit of a negative trend in the Balkans. Apart from the cybersecurity, we're starting. I just spoke with part of my cabinet. We're starting a working group on the ICT strategy. And unfortunately, in 2 years' time, we haven't had active ICT strategy. That will cover the aspects of artificial intelligence as well. I know something that you are very much probably interested in. We don't have an AI approach even by the government. There is no way of how we're doing things, but we're hoping that we will have that by next year. So we have a pretty clear strategic point of view where we're headed and what are the things that we need to do on the road, and what are the things that we need to implement. We have had huge support by our international partners. I'm very glad to be able to say this. I had to organize a donors coordination, and I called it breakfast, probably breakfast, because it's easier to gather people for a breakfast, because we have too many people, interested parties that are coming to help us in this area of digitalization. And they usually in the past had many doors to knock on. I want to make a one-stop shop for them as well, because what you have until now is this project-oriented approach by international parties that come do a digitalization of a municipality, digitalize the services of a municipality, of a town, of a region, and it's separate from everything else that is going on in the country. And you have all these separate networks, separate systems that function in the country because someone came from the international community with a nice idea, to help citizens, but then without the government leadership in order to say, this is okay, but let's connect it to the national platform of cooperation that we're doing. What I can say, because it's closed doors and probably it won't be affected by media, is that I'm planning on having an Android and iOS application for next year. It will be a combination of a digital wallet as a copy of your ID card and driving license. The most used card in Macedonia is ID card, not driving license. It's in the US, but have the ID card and driving license on the phone, and then add services to that application. Because what was my thinking in applying for this project and grant was that if I put some services on it, some people would use it, some people won't download it because they don't need it. But if I put, ID cards, and every youngster that will be stopped by police can show, and I have an ID card, this is my driving license, it will be a hit in the country, and then we can add services to it. So I'm hoping that I have, I'm thinking as an IT firm, I will hope to have 200, 300 downloads, 1,000 downloads in the first year. It will be a success for me and the government, and something that will stay for the generations to come. So these are the basic things that we are doing right now. Thinking about infrastructure and working on infrastructural plans in terms of 5G coverage of the country, helping other telecoms come to the country as well. We have only 2 telecoms, unfortunately, in order to boost the market and decrease prices for citizens to be able to get better coverage and for cheaper money, and also working on digital skills. I'm now focusing firstly on my ministry. I just put out a survey for my employees to say, okay, we need training in this, or we want a master's degree in this or that, and then we'll provide it for them for free, especially these advanced courses, and we'll make some kind of arrangement for them to stay in the ministry for a longer period of time and to utilize their capabilities and their skills. My idea is to retain as much as possible of the IT cadre, even though I know that the salaries we give in the public institutions are way lower than what is being given in the private sector, but then have these people that want to deliver on policies, they want to draft, solutions, strategies, want to coordinate efforts. I will be glad to keep them in the ministry. And also I want to attract, we have fantastic IT cadre coming from the universities. So there are 4 universities in the country that provide electrical engineering and IT as undergrad studies. Fantastic kids coming out of schools. I want to attract them in the ministry for them to gain experience, knowing that probably in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, they will leave the ministry and they will go to the private sector, to the telecoms, to earn better salaries. But then I will have 10 more coming next year, 10 more coming next year, in order to retain as much of them as possible, knowing that I will provide them the experience, because the private sector now does not employ them without the experience, provide them the experience, knowing that they will probably leave next year or the year after. But I will bring new guys on the spot. It will be hard for sure, but it's a moving sector. It's a sphere that is developing fast. I'm very happy to be able to serve as the first Minister of Digital Transformation, the youngest in the government, and to be able to to push these things within the government and within the society. It is a bit hard, I have to say. There is from some ministries you feel reluctance because you're destroying the old ways of bureaucracy, red tape, hiding documents in some drawers, not deciding on some issues. But I'm led by something that I've noticed, and I'll wrap up with this first part. Something I noticed during my technical mandate. The basic document that you need in Macedonia for everything that you do is a birth certificate, something that you have to have it, And it's usually in all of the laws, it says birth certificate not older than 6 months. It's usually like that. To take it out, you have to go to an office, we call it registries department. And to take it out, by law, they can give it to you in 30 days time. But lazy as we are in the Balkans, we usually do things last minute. So we need it for today, usually. You go there and you say, I need a birth certificate. And this is only one paper, so one page document. saying that you were born that year in that place. That's it. They will say, okay, no problem, €2 you pay. And they say it will be done in 20 days. You say, I need this for today, I need it fast. They say, no, not a chance, sorry. And you're waiting, I forgot to tell you, we're waiting approximately 1 hour, 2 hours to get to the office, to get to the point where you can be delivered the service. Say, sorry, 20 days, 15 days, you'll get it. Go out of that place, and outside the clerk waits for you in the park or the square, and they say, you want a birth certificate? You say, yes, and I need it today. No problem, €20. We counted with my team that probably €40,000 are made in pocket money per week in this office only. And this is showcasing corruption. This is corruption for citizens, because citizens don't apply to public procurement, these big tenders in which millions of euros are coming and going. They don't care about this stuff. There are journalists that care, and this is important. The institutional corruption is very important, this high-level, top-level corruption. But this one, everyone sees it. Everyone needs a birth certificate. And I've tested this with people coming from diaspora to do their job during summer, in the country. And every one of them was asked to be private. Every one of them. Coming ranging from €5 to €500, depending on the complexity of the paper that you need from that office. So my first focus and my first demand from my prime minister was, when he nominated me, was I said, I will accept this position only if I take, we call it matično, if I take this office under my competences as well. Of course, he accepted, because he understands the corruption behind it. And now we're working on digitalization of the birth certificates. For me, it will be a huge win if I have them digitalized for next year. And then you don't go to the office. Then you just apply, you get it electronically, you print it out, and you have the document. That will mean decrease of corruption in perception for citizens. If we manage to do that, people will start to believe the country, to believe the system. Okay, I applied, I paid my €2. Even people are prepared to pay even €5, not to wait in lines, not to be, dragged 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but to have the service right away. So my focus will be on these services that are most used services by citizens. In that manner, we can decrease this perception of corruption in terms of indices. In the same time, working on decreasing the high-level, top-level corruption, which means public procurement. That will be by the connection within the institutions, so they can target whatever sense of corruption there is. But citizens care about this, everyday, day-to-day corruption that is out there. Thank you again for the opportunity. I wasn't that long, so I'm expecting as many questions as possible to answer and to comment and to be able to discuss it with you, because I feel that way is a bit easier and more interesting for you guys.
Stefan, thank you. And that's exactly what we envision. This is your event. Ordinarily, I would be asking you a lot of questions, and I'm not going to do that today. An alert, I'm going to have to depart promptly at 3:30 because I have an overseas flight that I have to catch. But Stefan, depending on your schedule, obviously feel free to continue. And I want to emphasize the fascinating portfolio that Minister Andonovski has. Again, recent SAIS alumnus. He just mentioned the importance of e-governance, of digitalizing the services that government provides. We talked a little bit before about our own project with Estonia, which is the global leader in this and trying to advance the discussions and partnership and mentorship from Estonia to your country and your neighbors. And you have disinformation. This is also within your portfolio in the digital sphere. Very serious problem, one that I'm sure many of our students are aware of. And of course, cyber attacks, cyber security. This is a crucial problem. So those are topics that you can raise here. Let me just say, as we're recording, and for the record, I mentioned at the beginning that your country has been unfairly blocked by your neighbor, the EU. And this is important because, of course, the EU itself has its own vision for digital transformation. The US very much supports that. Let me just for precision here, as it will be a recording, that the previous government accepted an agreement that was negotiated by the EU, then in the leadership of France, with Bulgaria, where your country is supposed to pass a constitutional amendment, and then this would allow these negotiations to open. And also, I should mention here that Albania, your neighbor Albania, is also, up till now, has been blocked by this obstacle. So nominally, that's out there. At the same time, there's a question of future demands from your neighbor and whether you would have a guarantee. I'm just mentioning that for the record, but nominally there is this France negotiated approach to that issue. So please, you have a great opportunity here, and it's not every day that you get a minister in a government who's a SAIS alumnus. Ask him how his SAIS education influenced and helped him. Ask him about cyber. Ask about e-governance, disinformation, please.
Pozdrav ministre. Ismet Fatih from Prijateljske Bosne. I'm a visiting researcher here on Fulbright. Just a question that pertains your government, but also the region. The Balkans close to each other and small, especially in the wake of the attack on critical national infrastructure that happened in Albania and Macedonia, Montenegro, part of also in Bosnia. Is there any initiative that targets a joint approach, a regional approach on the EU path that you guys are working on with other countries in the Balkans to tackle the issue of first and foremost defending critical national infrastructure from foreign malign attacks?
Actually, that's why I'm here in DC. We just spoke this morning on the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, which is a global organization based in The Hague, but operating here from DC as well, supported by the USAID. They're doing initiatives on regional cooperation in this regard. Unfortunately, until now, it's based only on talks of common approaches. There are no concrete initiatives in terms of doing something together as countries. I mentioned this morning that the positives of it is that countries that are part of NATO will essentially communicate among themselves because of the NATO protocols for information sharing and especially building cyber resilience. The countries that are outside of the NATO spectrum and have no allegiance to it or have no path for the NATO, there we have a bit of a insecurity on in what way we will deliver or develop our cooperation. I'm talking primarily about Serbia, but also about lack of decision on Bosnia and Herzegovina and where it goes. Especially having in mind what the authorities in Republika Srpska are doing. So there is not much clear area of cooperation there, even though all of these countries nominally see themselves in the EU. So what Professor Joseph said about the EU standards and the NIS2 directive that sets the standards for cybersecurity in our region are a good path forward, because we all, as countries, have signed now the growth plan for the EU. A huge portion of that growth plan is about building IT infrastructure and cybersecurity. So by aligning ourselves with the standards set by the European Union, if we go about it together, then I think that could be a potential for cooperation. The attacks are huge. I mean, they're happening very often. In Macedonia, only the 2 attacks on the health fund and the infrastructure in the energy sector, if we haven't had the help from the US, they will probably cripple our society in general, because it's the energy sphere and it's the health fund, which holds all the data by the citizens of the country. We have a public health fund, it's only one. So it has all the information that out there from citizens. Fortunately, we had help from the US partners, primarily because of our strategic partnership and because of our membership to NATO. They came and they fixed the problem in very, very short amount of time, but it can happen again. It probably will happen again. It's most probably that cyber attacks will happen again. The problem is that we haven't had set criteria or standards or minimum standards by which every institution has to follow in order to be, secure, at least basically. Now we have institutions that keep their servers in a hallway somewhere without any protection physical first, and then of course licenses and protection.
Question is met. Thank you. Please.
Hi, I'm Carlo. I'm a first year MAR student. I have two questions. One is regarding like some advices on attaining digital transformation, and two, the second one would be your experience after SAIS. For the first question, this is a bit of a background for me. I come from a country that's currently in the process of implementing its digital transformation, the Philippines. And I also live in a country that's pretty much I'm also based in a country that's on the right track for it. I'm a Filipino living in Qatar. So I know the benefits of it and some of the challenges that face digital transformation. I would like to ask you, this may not be the situation in North Macedonia, but this is something that I've observed in my country, the Philippines, is how would you deal when you may have all these great accessible digital services online, but somehow you have a population that's having trouble accessing it. I've seen this when I was doing my summer in the Philippines, and people are taking a while in the e-gates because sometimes a lot of them were used to just meeting with an officer, but with the introduction of this new system, they're having trouble figuring it out too. And also with another thing too is with a digital app where we need to fill out our exit forms. I've seen my parents struggle with it. How it may be a situation that you might face in North Macedonia. So how would you deal with it, or do you have any advices in dealing with those issues for my country? And second, about your career after SAIS, you mentioned at the start that you regret focusing more on your academics rather than having the platform of working on your career or networking. But you seem to be in a great position now, as a minister. So how did you make up with that regret? How did you manage to end up still in a good position?
Yeah, fantastic questions. First, I'll tell you, after it was my 5th year of how they call it, the reunion that was happened in Bologna, 2019, a year before Corona, and I was on a smaller panel with a couple of students, explaining what we've did since SAIS, so the 5 years since SAIS. I wasn't in a fantastic position then at the time. I mean, I was struggling in between jobs or doing one way. I worked in a variety of private companies before joining politics. But it was the skills, the knowledge I gained from SAIS, and from time to time when you're least expecting it, then someone pops up from your network. I mean, and it's with the social media now, it's very easy to know who is in your network, But for me, it wasn't, the connection with SAIS was never a purposeful one. It was never, I have someone there so I can apply because they are from SAIS. For me, the path was towards, gaining all the skills here. For example, my first Excel training was in Bologna because I had extra time, and at the end of the year I took the class Advanced Excel at the time. I studied conflict management here, so I didn't study cyber or something that is, now fancy or now very interesting one. It was more based on conflict. I did my capstone research was on mediation strategies and how to evaluate good mediation efforts in terms of international conflicts. And I'm doing my PhD on that as well. So I'm focusing in my law degree on international law and international relations. However, the SAIS was always an extra tool that was very useful for me in a specific moments of my life. For example, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine from SAIS came to Skopje to open an office of Demonics International for a USAID funded project. And they called me and said, do you want to grab a coffee just for, I want to know the city more. And she was asking me, do you know someone who was working in this sector of international development these democratization initiatives, etc. I was listing people that are interesting to talk to, etc., etc. We wrapped up the conversation, and she says in the end, "And do you want to work as digital, expert in this project?" I was like, "Yeah, why not? I'm consulting 2 companies here on the sides, but I can work full time for this project." That's how I ended up in an USAID project for 4 or 5 months. 5 months. It wasn't a life decision or life-changing decision to join, but it was something that popped up in a moment of my life that was I was doing some other things in time as well. But building those networks since SAIS, being a friend with everybody in my group, and talking to everyone on just normal terms, just as human beings and fellow students, not expecting that I will be given something from that process, allowed me to always have someone to talk to in areas that are interesting to me. A similar thing happens now. One part of USA that works in the cyber sector and works in the Balkans and Eastern Europe is led by a colleague of mine from SAIS. We were 1 year in Bologna together, 1 year here in DC, and we're great friends. I found this out only when he was visiting Skopje to help the energy network fully function. I was in another capacity as deputy technical minister in the technical government. So these people that you meet, and they're all over the place. They know things, they know stuff, and they develop themselves. You will be part of those processes as well. Like it or not, if you are in constant communication with them. And I'm very glad that I was part of the network, and it was very, very helpful to me, not only because I was part of this and purposefully, targeting and marketizing myself as a SAIS grad, but because this network was built and was fostered by the school as well. And that's why I'm very happy to come back and talk to you about these things. So you can feel that it is not everything is not a strategy and not a plan. And I know it feels like that you have to have a plan in the second year, especially, and you have to do the internship, and you have to do all these calls, all these meetings, and etc. And probably you do have to do them, but it's not everything. It's the society, the ecosystem that is being built here that will help you grow in your life as well. It's not without the hurdles. It's not without, I've changed during Corona. I've changed 5 work positions in 5 different companies because no one wanted to hire me because of my political engagement. The other party was in full force at the time. I still have my SAIS degree with 6 years of experience after SAIS. No one wanted to take me on because the political side of me was pretty visible and pretty strong, and I was in opposition. So it was a party in opposition. No one said, this is a SAIS grad, he's fantastic, that's why we need to hire him. Everyone was saying he's coming from the other party, and we're a small country, 1.5 million. So they knew that, I was coming from another political sphere, and rarely who wanted to work with me. That's when USAID people came with the project. So it was a time in which, you have to contact. A bit about, I don't want to take too long, a bit about the e-services. You're absolutely right. What the UK government did with their portal is they purposefully tested it with, how they call it, so I'm not offending someone, 14-year-olds with less than average IQ. These guys tested the portal. It was only when they fulfilled all the, forms, they took out the services, they, they used the portal well, then they published it online. What they did in my country in 2020, when they first published the national portal, they make it the most complex portal in the world you've seen. In order to get a service, you need to click 14 times, and it's impossible for people to use it. What I'm doing in the first 60 days of my mandate is to completely redesign the portal, not from the backend, not from the position that I want to make it even, just from the user perspective. I want to be clean, clear, simple messages, simple clicks, 3 clicks until you get a service. That's the basic idea behind it. To make it as simple as possible. That's the first aspect. And the beauty of IT development nowadays is not to make it the most complex services, but to make it the simplest possible, because no one gives you a user manual to use Instagram or to use Facebook or to use, TikTok nowadays. You just use it, right? You use it from day one, and you visually, intuitively know what to click and where to click. We should make the same with the national portals. That's the catch behind it. If my grandma, she's 82, uses it, then it's good. If she can't use it, then it's a bad portal. It's not on the people to be, more digitally skilled. Digital skills are important for sure. But the catch of the government should be to make it as simple as possible. And with digital skills, I was talking this morning as well. In elementary schools, we usually teach our kids, to cross the street. You go to a street and you see to the left, to the right, and then you cross. And you have the signals, follow this and that. We never do that for digital. And we've learned to use digital skills ad hoc. If you're savvy enough, you learn. You're never taught. There's never a societal push for you to learn. We have to create that societal push. And it has to be artificially created because there's no such thing being done, at least not in the countries that are developing. Maybe in the developed countries, there are core subjects that, focus on that. I only had one course in my elementary studies in 1 year that was called informatics at the time and taught us to use basic digital skills. And it was good for me, but not enough. Then, it was some 5th, 6th grade, I was 12, 13, something like that, and then it stopped. So if you don't want yourself to be exposed to these things, you would probably never click a mouse again in your life. And that's unfortunate. Coming from a country that has digital potential.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your mind that the US can do either publicly or behind the scenes that would help you advance your mandate and your goals as digital transformation minister?
I have to say that they've done very good things. Even in my technical mandate, I've met with the USAID representatives. Even at the time they said, should you come into power, we are ready to full force support your development. And they're doing so because one of the first meetings I had was with USAID representatives and the US ambassador to Skopje. And I feel that digitalization and cyber are the top priorities of the US administration in Macedonia. And there is now huge support towards forming the cybersecurity sector within my ministry and developing the cybersecurity strategy. There could be done more, for sure, especially in terms of digitalization of services and giving more services online. And also on the digital skills aspect, building those cyber centers within our academia, building IT. I always speak about this IT and law center within the law faculty, because we need these people, these professionals that know IT, but also are good lawyers in terms of drafting strategies, laws, alignment with EU standards, because this cannot be drafted by engineers. It's impossible by engineers. And lawyers are lacking the knowledge in the IT sector in order to be able to draft suitable regulation. And this is not only for my country. It will be beneficial if we have these experts, then we can export them for the countries that are lagging behind or are doing this alignment as well. So we cannot export as a country infrastructure or money or natural resources, but we can export knowledge because people are very well educated in the country. And when they get their education right, then it's functioning very, very well. So I hope that in that regard we can get more actual help. In terms of narratives, I think that the current US narrative is very positive towards my country. The cooperation is very good. But as we've discussed with Professor Joseph, I think that increased presence by the US in the Balkans has always been seen as a positive experience. The lack thereof creates vacuums. Now I'm going towards politics more than towards cyber. And the lack thereof, these vacuums that are being created create instability because other factors, other actors come into play. They're not providing alternative narratives, but they're providing instability for the systems. And that's why these systems can collapse from time to time. I can clash among each other or do something else. And we probably follow the situation between Montenegro and Croatia now. And it is coming not because of the relationships with Montenegro and Croatia, but because the lack of perspective of these countries towards something that they're aspiring to. If you don't see a potential in your application towards NATO, towards the European Union, if you don't see a clear path on what are the steps towards it, then it's very easy to fall into these narratives of stability and security.
Nick, thank you for the question. And Stefan, on that last point, let me flag for those of you an article that came out on Foreign Policy today Nick Callums is smiling because he already heard about this. But there's an article on that site that, as I said earlier, I can recommend without hesitation because I wrote it. So if you, and it references, it's about the region and why, unfortunately, and for no good reason, the Balkan region is, as Stefan indicated, is deteriorating, including, it's mentioned in there in this brief article, which is how you have to write these days, this utterly unnecessary situation between Montenegro and Croatia. So if those of you who are interested, it's the headline is about Kamala Harris needs a Balkans policy. That's how they, and let me quickly say this I hope you all picked up on this point earlier by this gentleman's question in the back, your excellent question about what Minister Andonovski said about how his SAIS education helped him and about this ecosystem. I think that was really something, and you all know the famous phrase about luck, the definition of luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So that's the luck that it isn't constantly, oh, I'm gonna, go here and go there and ask this person and I'm gonna get that job. It's this maintaining your network and being interested in what others are doing, and that organically this emerges there. So I think that this is really important. Stefan, please go ahead.
Self. Hi, my name is Stavros Peridis. I'm a second-year student here at SAIS. I'm a Fulbright fellow in Greece. I'm Greek. And starting off, I would like to say that we would very much welcome North Macedonia in the EU. I think it's positive for the whole region, as long as there are the necessary reforms. And then the whole Balkan situation is also very positive for us. And
I'm good of you to say that.
Sorry?
I said, Efaristo. Very good of you to say that.
Of course. I'm curious, since Professor Joseph mentioned that there is an unfair blockage of your EU negotiations, and a potential blocking point would be the differences between our two governments. I'm curious if there is a reason behind your government, your newly elected government's position on the usage of the constitutional name, and if there's any strategy behind that, if your government doesn't like the previous agreement, if there is a trajectory there where you would like to negotiate further.
You touched upon a topic that's very interesting. I'm an IR enthusiast, even though I'm doing digital transformation now. I'm also international secretary of my party, so I've been very active in the IR sector. I have to say we have very good representation of Greece in Skopje. The current ambassador, she is fantastic and very inspiring in terms of especially cultural communication between countries, cooperation between universities. So she's doing a very good job. And I think Greece can be what it wasn't all past these years, our strategic partner in the Balkans. Because we share now, we all accept with the PRESP agreement, a common region that is a region of Macedonia covering Greece, now the Republic of North Macedonia and the Republic of Bulgaria, but it is a very intertwined region. Peoples, regions, wine, cheese, food, whatever you think. So it is an intertwined region in which there has been a lack of cooperation communication. And there is potential there. Unfortunately, it wasn't used because of the name issue, primarily. What my party thinks about the agreement, I have to say, I've criticized it myself publicly on numerous occasions. I think for us as a country, it was the worst possible way of signing the agreement. In the preparation phase, in the experts that were tasked with on our side, in the abruptness of it passing, because the government came into the new government came into position 1st of June 2017. They signed the contract, the agreement only the next year. So they didn't even have the time to think about what is going on. On the side of Greece, it was some of the parts of the society were very much against the Prespa agreement as well. I think on our side, it could have been done better. As you probably noticed, it's very difficult for me to use the new constitutional name. I don't take it naturally. And I feel that it's touching upon my personal identity, my identity as a community. And it's something that, bothers me, I have to be honest. In the same time, it opened the door towards NATO for us as a country and towards the more political cooperation between both countries. And that's a positive of the agreement as such. I think it could have been done better in terms of us as countries communicating better first and then bringing an agreement to the table that would be fully functional. This one, I think, has its own challenges in terms of cooperation in the future, but I think with a positive political atmosphere on both sides, we can surpass those challenges. We had a big issue with the passports this year, at the beginning of this year. The agreement tasked us to have the new passports with the new constitutional name, I don't know, by 1st of January. 400,000 passports were not changed, so our citizens were blocked around the world, having those old passports. With good cooperation and communication between then leader of the opposition Mitskovsky and Prime Minister Mitsotakis, there was a joint agreement that more passports can be given to us faster because there was a Greek-German company, but in the same time Greece not objecting our people using the old passports. So that's where I see the potential for cooperation. Seeing that we have challenges, we have problems with the agreement on both sides, but living with it, and trying to build something out of it. If we are successful in that regard, I think there is a potential for us being strategic partners, because I think that Greece needs a strategic partner in the Balkans, and I think we need a strategic partner as well in this region. It's good when you communicate with the US, with Brussels, with Berlin, but you have to have alliances on the Balkans. Unfortunately, other countries are not very interested in cooperation.
Very well said, and again, that's great the way you put the question, and I think it's very important. If you permit me, obviously, you are Macedonian, I am not, but we're here at SAIS, and you studied conflict management. I taught in conflict management and worked on the ground in the region for 12 years, and I've written about the Prespa agreement and co-written an article with a good Macedonian friend and academic colleague. And so just speaking for my part here and just say that I consider it a very good agreement, and while respecting completely your views, Minister Andonovski, and whatever your views may be, or someone else in Greece who may not also like the agreement. But I think that it was the negotiation in contrast to another agreement that your country has with another neighbor. I think that this agreement was seriously negotiated, and I think it's a difficult compromise. There's no doubt about it. It's difficult, but I think it's a serious compromise. I would use both of those terms. I think it's a serious compromise. I think there were major concessions that were done, difficult concessions from each side, and the adjective Macedonian, which Greece accepted, free of any prefix, and that's why we don't use North when we use the adjective. We use Macedonian. It's the Macedonian nationality, the Macedonian people, the Macedonian language, and that's a major step forward. And I couldn't agree more about this hope for a strategic partnership, because that's what's natural. That's what really should be natural. There's so much affinity between the two, and with so many Macedonians going to Halkidiki and other places in Greece, and the relationship is one of a natural partners.
Yeah, just two sentences. Sorry, what we're doing now to foster this relationship is we're building the gas interconnector between Greece and Georgia is based. The idea is to have another source of gas outside from the Russian, because the only source of gas now we have is Russian gas coming through Bulgaria. And one is to build the interconnector with Greece. And the other thing, we switched from the Corridor 8 connecting Albania to Bulgaria with terms of railway to modernizing the Corridor 10, so Serbia to Greece connection in terms of railway, because Thessaloniki port is of instrumental importance to our country and to our economy. Having that connected with fast railway would be huge for the economy. So these are the practical things we need to do for it to be. Sorry.
Please.
No, we have time for that. Hi, Anya Dinian, MIIR from Albania originally. The question is in regards to the Albanian language and the status, and you know very well. I mean, it's 1.5 million people. I don't know what percentage is actually Albanian
24.
left in the country. And so I'm going to take you a little bit into the politics, away from technology, the utopia. So please, I'd like to know your.
You mean the question is how much is being used, or?
No. The question is, would you your opinions on this as a politician?
You know, it's a huge question. We have the Ohrid Framework Agreement
Right.
coming from 2001. It put an end to the ethnic conflict, which could have escalated easily into a civil war. The Ohrid Framework Agreement has its own positive sides, one of which is mentioning for the first time clear Euro-Atlantic perspective for the country, and one non-federal but a uniform decision for the country to continue to exist as a unison entity. The bad side of it, and I have it in my master's thesis as well, is that it created parallel societies in the country, unfortunately. What did it do? Now we have an Albanian elementary school, taught exclusively in Albania, a Macedonian one, and they're separate from each other. Then you have a high school, also separate. Then you have a university, also separate. Then you have businesses owned by Macedonian businesses or Albanian businesses. You have a kid that was born 95, 96, 97, is only studied in the Albanian school, and one that is only studied in the Macedonian school. They have zero communication. And we have unfortunately created two parallel societies that function in the country, which don't communicate with each other. The only place they do communicate is the rich guys from both sides. Why? They go in the same clubs, bars, they do business among each other, and they're functioning very well. The regular citizens don't speak the lingua franca, the Macedonian, because no one else. And now we understand each other in English, unfortunately, with many of them. Instead of that, we could have, but it wasn't thought that smart at the time, to create joint schools in which you are taught in Albanian, you're taught in Macedonian, you're taught in Turkish. We have a Turkish community, we have a Roma community. You're taught in Roma, but you stay in the same building. You study in the same, go to sports together, go to these events together. At the time, it was thought that these conflictual societies better to separate them, to create a freezing zone in them. And it's a tactic that was being used by mediators all over the world all the time. It's not a new tactic that was being used. And it was thought this is a fast solution, separate the hostile entities and make them work in their own parallel systems. 23 years after that, the fruits are not positive, because Albanian guys and girls are leaving the country, not happy with what is going on. They don't speak the language, they have no communication with their peers. Macedonians are also leaving the country because of economics, infrastructure, etc. And that is, has not created an environment in which we thrive together. It has created an environment which is parallel to each other. Going forward, I think it's impossible. It's possible, and it's important to build potential for cooperation for all of them in the digital sphere. That's why I see digital as important, because in this sphere we're all equal and we're all together. We all need the same services, same things, same IT development, same skills that need to be developed. And I see potential for cooperation there, but it has to be purposeful, because the division was purposeful. Now the integration should be also purposeful. It should also be implemented from day one. In terms of usage of the language within the country, there is, people that are free to use the Albanian language in institutions. Apart from schools, you can apply for ID card from any service that you want in Albanian. You're applied to in Albanian as well. So there is I don't see a challenge there. But I truly think that we need to do more in terms of integration. That will be an important step forward.
Very, very well said. Stefan, are you able to stay on
Yeah,
and maybe
sure.
to speak informally, if, with your permission, I might close the formal session and allow you all to interact. And that was a great question to ask. And let me take this while we're again still on recording to your point about parallel societies and parallel and separate education systems. Let me just note that the exception to that is Southeast European University in Tetovo. I mentioned this, I'm on the board. I'm very proud that I'm on the board, which they teach in 3 languages, in Albanian, Macedonian, and English. And the student body is mixed. The faculty is mixed, and that was an effort that grew out of the conflict and the Oak Ridge Framework Agreement. So we have to support that model. But I totally take your point, Stefan, that about the unfortunate nature of the separation and the effort to make a deliberate, conscious move to have integration. The good thing, let me quickly add this, the really good thing, and you to be thankful for about the Oak Ridge Framework Agreement is that unlike the Dayton Agreement, disastrous Dayton Agreement, it relies in zero respect on territory. So there's absolutely no territorialization of this separation, unlike you have in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which of course is source of so many difficulties there. But with your permission, Stefan, I'm going to close this, and if with your permission, students, and thanks from my side for joining us, please join me in thanking Minister Stefan Andonovski. Thank you so much. Once I know, please feel free to continue here as you can. I got a dash. Yeah. That was great. It was absolutely great.